It's just past 9 Tuesday morning, brought to you by the TSN team in just a moment. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel and give us a like. Russians killed a family with 2 children in the Sumy region. At night, the enemy deliberately struck a residential building in the village of Chernechina with a drone. Rescuers recovered the bodies of 4 people from under the rubble, a father, a mother, and their sons, aged 6 and 4. During the night, Russians launched air attacks on the central, southern, eastern, and northern regions of Ukraine. In Pavlohrad, Dnipropetrovsk region, fires broke out as a result of the enemy attack and windows in houses were shattered. More details in the upcoming TCH broadcasts. And the day before, 2 women were injured in Dnipropetrovsk region due to Russian shelling. In Sinelnikivsky district, a private house, 2 SES vehicles, and a cultural center were destroyed. 5 more homes were damaged in Nikopol district. Kherson was also targeted by the enemy. The occupiers struck the Dnipro district. One of the shells hit a 5-story building, destroying apartments, and the blast wave shattered windows in neighboring buildings. During the enemy attack, the Holy Assumption Cathedral was damaged. The Russians struck the church right in the middle of a service. Fortunately, there were no casualties. However, in Bilozerka, a man and an elderly woman sustained shrapnel wounds. The Russians shelled the village with artillery, damaging homes and a healthcare facility. A Ukrainian FPV drone neutralized a Russian helicopter. In the area of the village of Kotlyarivka in Donetsk region, operators of the Steppe Predators unmanned systems destroyed a Mi-8 transport and combat helicopter in the air using an FPV drone. The Mi-8 is a Russian multi-purpose helicopter used for transporting personnel and cargo, conducting medical evacuations, and also as an aviation support platform for ground units. The cost of one such helicopter is at least $6 million. Devastating attacks worth $100 billion. This is the amount of damage Ukraine has inflicted on Russia with its strikes on oil infrastructure. This was reported by the British publication The Sun. According to its source, Ukrainian forces are striking at the heart of Putin's economy. Due to the attacks in Ukraine, the aggressor and the territories it occupies are experiencing fuel shortages. In particular, starting today, Sevastopol has introduced restrictions on the sale of the most popular types of gasoline. Each customer will be able to fill up a maximum of 30 liters. He tried to sell Ukrainian naval artillery, which is used to shoot down drones and cruise missiles, to Russia. The security service of Ukraine detained a businessman from Mykolaiv who disguised the weapons as water heaters and was planning to smuggle them out of Ukraine. The route ran through European Union countries and Asian states. Ultimately, the weapons were supposed to end up in the hands of the Russian army. According to the investigation, the artillery systems the businessman intended to sell were worth $1.5 million. Law enforcement officials are not disclosing how the weapons came into his possession. To create a joint shield against Russian aerial threats, Ukraine is proposing to Poland and its partners to jointly resist the occupier in the air. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky stated during the Warsaw Security Forum is already capable of countering all types of the occupier's drones and missiles. And with the participation of partners, there is an opportunity to increase the amount of weaponry and the production capacity for it. This will deprive Russia of the ability to dominate or act brazenly in the air. After all, the occupier has repeatedly violated international airspace in Estonia, Poland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and constantly stages new provocations. There is also evidence that Russia may have launched its drones from tankers in the Baltic Sea. Therefore, the Ukrainian president says it is necessary to act together. Impose sanctions, use Russian assets for defense and reconstruction, and jointly implement the protection of the continent. No NATO country will be left alone in the fight against Russia's hybrid attacks. This was stated by Germany's top diplomat during a meeting of the Weimar Triangle countries. Ukraine's top diplomat is also participating in the negotiations, which are focused, among other things, on security. Andriy Sybiha was invited to join the meeting by his Polish counterpart. The head of Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs informed the allies about the situation on the battlefield and the urgent needs of our country. According to Andriy Sybiha, the meeting also discussed a joint response to the recent escalation and provocations by Russia, including a series of recent hybrid attacks against Western countries. Kyiv emphasizes that it is necessary to increase pressure on Moscow through coordinated sanctions, the full use of frozen Russian assets, and support for Ukraine's defense. The head of the German Foreign Ministry agreed with this view, expressing hope for the introduction of strong sanctions.
We agreed that strengthening sanctions is a key factor in limiting Russia's military potential, at least until Russia withdraws its troops from Ukrainian territory. Any existing gaps in the sanction system must be closed, and I hope that the next package of sanctions will be implemented quickly.
Despite pressure and interference from Russia, the people of Moldova chose democracy, reforms, and a European future. This is how the European Union welcomed the results of the parliamentary elections in the neighboring country. In the Moldovan vote, pro-Russian forces failed to gain a decisive advantage. President Maya Sandu's party is securing a majority in parliament. Katerina Fedorchenko will tell you more.
Disinformation, preparations for unrest, and voter bribery. The parliamentary elections in Moldova took place under extremely tense conditions. In particular, because Moscow has been making intensified efforts to block Chisinau's European path.
There is already enough evidence that Russia is both planning and carrying out significant interference, and we will see how this will affect the results.
One of the methods used by the Russians, already familiar to Ukrainians, is the influence of the church connected to Moscow, so that it persuades parishioners to vote for pro-Russian forces. The Moldovan authorities have spoken about this.
Russia recruits and trains priests during so-called comprehensive pilgrimages in order to turn religion into a weapon. After the training, the priests come to Moldova and use their influence to sow distrust, undermine public confidence, and create and fuel suspicion.
Reuters has identified several politicians from Putin's United Russia party who accompanied Moldovan priests on trips to the aggressor country. Journalists have calculated that nearly 90 new Telegram channels and accounts of Moldovan Orthodox parishes have been created over the past year. Most of them published identical content almost daily, urging believers to oppose the government's pro-Western decisions. And thousands of believers read this. Fortunately, Moscow's tricks didn't really help it much. Voter turnout in the pro-Russian regions was relatively low. This was partly due to the fact that the authorities relocated 5 polling stations intended for voters from Transnistria. They did this to reduce security risks, in particular to prevent possible false bomb threats and other provocations. As a result, the party of pro-Western President Maya Sandu is gaining a majority in parliament. The party, Action and Solidarity, received more than 50% of the votes. According to forecasts, this will give her 54 seats in parliament, which has a total of 101 seats. However, the pro-Russian party, Patriotic Bloc, led by the former president, will also enter Moldova's parliament. It received more than 24% of the votes. This will give the party 27 seats. The pro-European party Alternative also entered parliament, and according to forecasts, it will have 8 seats. 2 other political forces may receive a small number of votes. A number of Western politicians have already responded to the election results. Chisinau is being congratulated on the victory of democracy and promised comprehensive support on its European path.
You are watching TSN. To stay up to date with the main news, subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. And now, I continue with the news. In Hungary, a number of Ukrainian publications have been banned, including ATI and TSN UA. This was reported by Gergely Gulyas, the Minister of the Prime Minister's Office of Hungary. This was explained as a response to Ukraine blocking 2 Hungarian pro-Russian resources. Gulyas explained that Hungary has implemented mirror measures against a number of Ukrainian news portals, which have become inaccessible in Hungary since yesterday. In addition to TSN.ua, the blocked sites include Ukrainska Pravda, Hromadske, Lvy Bere, and others. A historic count's wedding. Last weekend, Gregor Rozumovsky was married in the ancient St. Andrew's Church in Kyiv. He is a direct descendant of the last Ukrainian hetman, Kyrylo Rozumovsky. A historian and renowned European analyst, he is a passionate advocate for our country in Europe and around the world. Count Rozumovsky grew up in Austria, first came to Ukraine in 1991, and after the full-scale invasion, he essentially settled in Kyiv and now lives between 2 countries. Before God, Gregor Rozumovsky took a Ukrainian woman, Natalia, as his wife. After the wedding ceremony, they celebrated a lavish wedding in Sofia. It began with a tour of the cathedral, followed by a banquet in the Metropolitan Palace. It was at these very locations that the famous ancestors of the Rozumovsky dynasty visited at the end of the 18th century. Records have been preserved indicating that in 1743, Natalia Rozumovsky, the mother of Kyrylo and Oleksiy, visited the Sofia monastery. She was received in the Metropolitan's residence and was presented with books that had been specially acquired for the occasion. A year later, at the beginning of the construction of St. Andrew's Church, Oleksiy Rozumovsky was a guest here. It was he who laid the first stone of the now world-famous church. A wedding at St. Andrew's is an incredibly symbolic event because 300 years ago, Kyrylo Rozumovsky fought for the autonomy and freedom of the Hetmanate. Now his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson returns to Ukraine to get married here. At this moment, that was the latest update. Don't miss our upcoming TCH broadcast to stay up to date with the news.